Hi, my name is Liz from Lohas, Canada. This is my very first podcast number 1. So on this podcast, we're going to talk about sewing, knitting, self-sustaining items, eco-friendly products is what I make. So today, I want to show you some of my knitting items, some knitting in progresses, some of the wool, and then I want to show you some of the eco-friendly products that I have been selling. I don't have an online shop right now, so I'm only selling them at local craft fairs, and I'm hoping to do Amazon handmade in the future. But this might give you some ideas if you're a sewer or if you're wanting to buy more eco-friendly items to swap out. These will give you some ideas of what they are. So let's talk about knitting. I did not grow up with knitting in my household. I did not grow up with sewing in my household either. My dad actually sent me to a sewing class when I was about 13 or 14. So about 3 years ago now, I love handmade socks, and they're really hard to find because they have such a high price tag. The socks I was finding at craft stores, they didn't have the best quality wool because it is expensive. So my handmade socks were constantly getting holes and they weren't lasting very long. So I said, enough is enough, I'm going to learn how to make socks. And most people are like, oh, socks are the hardest thing, especially if you've never knitted. And I just said, I don't care. So the YouTuber Simply in Stitches, I think her name's Tina, I watched her videos and I broke everything down and I wrote it in the way that I could understand it. So I'm a very visual learner, so her videos were awesome. I had to rip out so many things. I didn't understand how to join the round even. From that journey, I just kept on knitting socks and I got very comfortable. It was just a vanilla pattern, so I was just knitting socks in different colors. This one was the very first one I knit, and you can tell it's very small. So that was just an idea, and it does fit my feet, but it does shrink down. So these all look really complicated, but it's just self-striping yarn, so I didn't have to do any of the color work. So I just need to learn how to knit, and it kept it interesting because the colors were gradient and different for me. So I joined a knitting group, which was amazing because then I can ask them questions. They're throwing around lingo I don't understand. So then in 2019, someone in the knitting group said, maybe you should do something else besides socks. And I was like, oh, socks are my comfort zone. I love knitting socks. But it really got me thinking I should start knitting other things. So I ended up going to the Qualicum Beach Weavers and Knitters Guild. So they ended up having some wool for sale, and I knitted at my mom some fingerless mitts. So this is 100% merino, it's hand spun, and then it's also dyed in goldenrod, then cochineal, so that bug. So this beautiful pink color, my mom loves pink, so that's all I have left. And my next project was going to be a headband, but then it was so cold in that first weeks of December, and I was working outside, so I decided there's no way I'm going to be able to knit one up in time. So I found this. It's by the same dyer. Her name is Vera, and it's also, no, this one is dyed with mushrooms. So I forget the name of the wool, but anyhow, it did go all the way around and it was thick all the way around, but I just like that little pull-in just at the very front just to give my face a little bit of a framework. So I just sewed it, but I just hand sewed it, but yeah, it's dyed with mushrooms. So I ended up buying this one, and this is 100% merino wool, and it is dyed with mushrooms as well. This is a Vera lot as well. So it's a merino wool 3-ply mushroom dyed, 65 grams, 142 meters, almost DK weight. So I think if I muster up enough courage, I don't know if I'll be making the exact same one of this because I already have one now, but something else with this. So at this one craft fair, my friend Margaret was selling her stuff, so I ended up getting this color. It's 100 grams, so 400 meters, fingering weight, super wash merino, 70% and 30% silk. So she's from Arrington, And I don't know exactly, I was thinking a hat. I was originally thinking more fingerless gloves as well. It is super fine, but it is so silky. It'd be more of like a luxury item. And my sister got me this wool a couple of years ago, and it is a cotton bamboo elastic, no, nylon. So it's a cotton, bamboo, nylon, and silk mix, and I love knitting socks, so I knit one because she gave it to me a couple years ago, and that was when I first started to knit, but she only gave me one of these, and I was like, oh, I need two to make a sock, so I ended up having to go back and getting it because they're 50 grams. So I have that now. In the summertime I have a really hard time knitting, so I think knitting summery things will be a lot better and more motivation than knitting like really heavy socks in the summertime. I don't really understand how all the weights and the different fibers interact with each other. So in our knitting group we're knitting a 10 by 10 square for somebody, and then they're going to make it into an afghan once they gather up all the 10 by 10 squares for people. So I bought this wool, and it's a sock weight, and I thought, oh, you know what, it'd be awesome if I could knit this up. So I bought this wool thinking I'll knit it up with a 10 by 10 square, and anything left over I'll then knit up some fingerless mitts. And I guess that's why people do swatches. So I started this, and then I realized this is not super comfy for a blanket, and it's also not 10 by 10 like this way because of all the nylon. It's gotten so much give. So I ended up scrapping that, and this is my second one that I knit, and I've knitted it so long now that I'm just gonna fold it up and make it into a fingerless glove that way. So 2 Christmases ago, my dad wanted some handmade socks, so I found this really nice Tuscan tweed, and I decided to knit up a pair of socks for him. And so this is the color. It's really nice to work with. It's wool, viscose, and mohair. Some leftover, so I'm just gonna make another little sock as well. I didn't really know how high to make it because I didn't know how much I had left, but I thought I could always just work in a couple more stitches if I needed to at the top. So that is one work in progress. So this is gonna be the 10 by 10 square. And this is just wool. It's just wool that I got from, I think, a fiber sale, and it was just kind of like the ends of stuff, so I don't have a name for it. And the knit for this is the only other pattern I know how to knit, and I don't know where I got it from. I just have it in my book as fluffy clouds because that's what I think they are. I really liked it on the sock, and now I've memorized the pattern, so I don't need to look at the book. Alright, on to the sewing items. So eco-friendly sewing products have really been a journey for me, sewing these up, researching them, finding out what people are after. Really, I started with what I could find that was made in Canada, and I'm not talking about like importing things and then stamping your logo on it saying that it's made in Canada type thing. I'm actually talking about like legit made in Canada, like someone's sweat factory here. So I decided to make my own stuff because I am the sweat factory now. But these are travel cases. So I made these not in any particular order. These ones were probably the last thing that I've created. In the summer we have so many potlucks going on here, and I was constantly looking for like my fork or spoon or something like that, and it would be like rifling through like old bags in my car just to see if I had one, or chopstick. A lady was like, oh, do you have any half sizes? Because she had the little bamboo cutlery sets, which I never even thought about, or the little spoons, so she could fit it in her purse. So that's why I made this half size here. So my sister, I think, wanted to put some of her art supplies in here. So the next item is bento bags. So this is a bento bag. You can fit your produce in it, you can fit your lunch into it, and that's how I use it mainly, is to put my lunch into it, and then I have it in my car, and then if I forget something, I just need to pick up 1 or 2 items from the store, maybe some produce, then I just put it into here, take out my lunch first, put it into here, and then I just got a little grocery bag all ready to go, and it's not an extra thing that I have to think about. So looking to other cultures, how they use their fabric in the least amount of ways. Alright, so this is the reusable tea bag, and you put your loose tea into there and you flip it over. So pretty simple. So with all the tea reports coming out of all the tea bag stuff going on, that this is a great alternative. People have used the drawstring ones, but I always sometimes find when I put them, say, in the crock pot, or if I'm putting them I just don't tie them up tight enough maybe. So this was my alternative to that. So these are non-essential swaps. But if people are going to be using scrunchies, they really should be using something that's great for their hair. So these have been, and scrunchies are super trendy right now, so I made them out of linen. So with that, I've also done silk, because silk is a great protein for your hair. So and they're way more light than linen. So if you get headaches from wearing scrunchies, it could be the fabric as well. It's being too heavy. So silk is a great option. And then I created little mini ones. So the reason why I created mini ones is for kids and people with really thin hair. So they're much lighter than these ones, and I haven't been able to find a solution for really thick hair of how to make it more lightweight so that it doesn't hurt their head if their hair is already up. So I did watch one video on YouTube, I'll see if I can find it again, and she just used pantyhose, the ring around the pantyhose for the leg for your thigh, and she just cut that so you still had the ring, and she used that. So pantyhose isn't really ideal, it is nylon, but it works for her hair and it's super lightweight and she can make them really inexpensive. So alright, let's talk produce bags. Now, produce bags, if you have ever sewn, this is probably your first project, and they were not called produce bags, they were called project bags. So this is the very first thing you learn how to sew, putting a drawstring at the top and putting all your material into it. So if you are into sewing, you can just make up your own produce bags. I make them with organic cotton because I'm selling them, because there are for other people who are going to be using them with food, so I do want it to be organic. So these are just produce bags with different sizes, and you can create your own. These ones are cheesecloth bags. So the produce bags that have been really popular have been the nylon ones, or sometimes there's organic cotton mesh ones. So with the cotton, it will break down and we're not putting nets back into our ocean. So with these, what I'm thinking, I am almost out of these. So these are washed cheesecloth, so I sew them up. They're really hard to sew because they are such a slippery material, because they shrink incredibly small once you wash them. So they're quite large when I sew them up. So I think for my next batch I'm going to leave them quite large, and then when people do their first wash, and I'll just make sure that they know it's not going to be the true size once you wash them, because washing them definitely makes a difference. So the unscrubs. So this is to replace your dishcloth when you do dishes. It's got the burlap on one side, and inside it's a fiber that will break down naturally. So these ones, they are, because of the burlap, you can put in the washing machine. I'd probably put on the delicate cycle and then just put them to air dry. But these work out really well, very popular. You can also use them in your shower, somebody was saying, because it's nice soft on the one side and then you got the roughness on the other. So just some options. Alright, so linen bread bags. These bread bags are huge, so I made them so you can fit artisan bread into it. Now, with the bread bags, you kind of need a bread box unless you're going to put it in your fridge. In the old days, they would take their linen tea towel, wrap their fresh bread, and then put it in the bread box. Really, depending on the humidity of the place, is depending on how it's going to last. The bread box seals it in so it keeps it moist, so your outer crust, it will get hard, and then the inner of the bread will be nice and soft. Now if you get your bread cut up though, it's all in pieces and it won't be really nice and soft in the middle because it's in pieces unless you can keep it together somehow. So if you don't have a bread box too, then you're going to want to put this in your fridge because it will keep the outers kind of crusty and hard and then the inners nice and soft, but it won't last as long as say plastic, which really traps in all the types of moisture. So I have seen people make cotton bread bags. Now, I haven't come across any literature about cotton bread bags, so if you do have any literature, I would love to read it. So if you have anything in the comments below, put that in there and I'll read it. I just haven't found anything. In the war times, it's all about linen, wrapping your bread and rations in linen, so I haven't read anything. I've also been trying to find, and maybe some of you guys know, is what makes linen so special for your bread. Is it the weave? Is it the flax? I'm thinking it's the flax of the plant-based material, but I haven't really come across literature to figure out why linen is the choice to put your bread in. So thanks so much for watching my very first podcast. Let me know in the comments below what you guys liked, anything you didn't like, something else you want to see, something about a little longer. If you guys want me to talk about a certain subject, I do want to focus the podcast on certain subjects, give you an update on some sewing and some knitting, but also really give a focus on a subject that we can all talk about and have a discussion on and get a little education on. So I hope you guys are all well, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!